I'm JJ Ramberg, and today we're going to dive into retirement plans and how the Secure Act 2.0 affects small businesses. Joining me for the conversation is Renee Grimm, Senior Vice President of Retirement Plans at Capital Group. And just a quick reminder before we start to our audience, we want to hear from you. So please first take our poll, and if you have a question, put it into the chat, and I will get to as many as we can. Hey there, Renee.
Hey, JJ. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's so good to see you. And I'm so happy to have you on the other side of this conversation because you know so much about this stuff. So before we dive into the benefits of small businesses, because there are a lot of them and you know them very well, intricately, can you just give me a sense of who we're talking to? How many small businesses currently provide retirement plans for their employees?
Great question. I love that we're starting there. Thank you, JJ. So, in previous sessions, we talked about the big number, 47 million Americans being uncovered by a retirement plan. When we break that down, these small businesses, 100 employees or less, if we look at businesses with less than 10 employees, only 28% of business owners in this country are offering those employees a plan. And if we click up a little bit and we look at companies that have 10 to 24 employees, there's a bit of a jump, 51%. But when we roll it all together, under 100 employees, only 26% of businesses in this country are offering their employees a way to save.
I mean, that's amazing. That is amazing. And this new plan, hopefully, or the Secure Act 2.0 will change that. So let's talk about what the benefits are to small businesses to try and inspire them and incentivize them to start offering these plans.
Absolutely. So, like our session, right? Some of the tax incentives and credits you've been waiting for are here. So there's a ton, JJ, to Secure Act 2.0. Just so everyone knows, there were over 90 different provisions in Secure Act 2.0, really with the driving intent of helping to reduce the savings gap that we have in the country. But I'm going to focus on two key provisions that I think really stand out to our audience as business owners. So the first is a new addition to the Secure Act, and that is actual plan credits, employer tax credits, when they are contributing money to their employees. There's a couple of different tiers, so I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but I'll break it down in two ways. If you're a business with 50 employees or fewer, essentially you can get up to 100% of your contribution to an employee tax credit back to you up to $1,000. And then if you have 51 to 100 employees, the incentives tier a little differently, but this is a 5-year sliding scale where you can get up to 100%, 100, 75, 50, 25, and down it goes. Our government is offering credits to employers for giving contributions to employees over the next 5 years. That's pretty darn cool.
What if you're already giving it to them? Do you get any benefit?
There are, yes. Great question. There are still benefits available depending on how long your plan has been in place. So if I say it once today, I'll probably say it 1,000 times. Definitely want to talk to a qualified tax professional to see where your business is, the size, what they qualify for. But the other incentive that is there and has been more enhanced, if you will, for existing as well as new employers, plan cost credits. These used to just be some deductions in some respects, like the contributions, but now instead of just giving a 50% plan credit for startup costs, administrative expenses, etc., the government's offering up to 100%. So again, depending on the size of the business, how old your plan is, or if you're looking to start one, new incentives, expanded offerings, credits over deductions, that's a winning formula.
So the government's taken the expense away for small businesses. 100% of the expense away?
We can't say 100% of the expense away. My first day of economics class, I think the professor said there's no such thing as a free lunch. So some things you can't get the government to pay for, mutual fund expenses. But given the size and the generosity of these credits, JJ, certain plans could essentially have their retirement plan all but paid for in the early innings in the first couple of years by the government. Very possible.
You know, one of the reasons small businesses haven't offered plans in the past has been the cost. We've addressed that, but it's also time. And you know, because you speak to small business owners all the time, when you're a small business owner, you have 2,000 things to do and you have to prioritize what's most important in growing your business. And a lot of times these kind of benefits fall down
Mhm.
on your to-do list. And so how do you counter that?
So I would say think about the impact that this could have, not just for yourself, but for your employees, right? We've addressed the cost. So I think the way that employees experience the economy, and Capital Group did some research. We wrapped it up at the end of the year. So all of this data is actually prior to the passing of Secure Act 2.0. I'm really excited to see how the data will shift when we do this again. But essentially, we found that for most employees, their three largest concerns, if they were not covered by a retirement plan, was the rising cost of living, rising cost of gas, rising cost of healthcare. But what was really unique in this finding, JJ, is that employees who are actually covered by a qualified retirement plan had less sensitivity to some of these short-term inflationary pressures, rising cost of gas, healthcare, than those who do not have a plan. So while it may seem almost like a disconnect, employees, when they have that corporate sponsored retirement plan, not only do they experience the economy differently, they also have reported that it is an important benefit. So in one of the earlier conversations, I referenced a study from Willis Towers Watson, and they looked at employees over a 10-year period. And what they found that now, at least as of 2022, 61% of employees actually consider the employer-sponsored retirement plan a key benefit and reason to stay. And then also importantly, looking at new hires for attracting talent, they're actually viewing the employer-sponsored retirement plan as such a valuable benefit. They're willing to accept that over possibly closing the income gap that they initially were seeking in their job search. So it really can contribute.
Go ahead.
I was going to say it can contribute to loyalty, attraction of new talent. And we've always been saying it's a great talent and acquisition tool, but the numbers are bearing this out. Employees want the plans, and I have more data we can discuss on that. Now, the barriers to entry have been lifted.
Are there sensitivities when it comes to age? So when you're hiring older employees, they're more focused on this, and younger employees don't quite realize the benefit yet?
So there is some of that. We definitely see with the generational shift, millennials, for instance, have very different priorities in terms of how they're saving. They're interested in things like having access to emergency savings, which guess what, JJ? That's a provision in the Secure Act 2.0, giving employees access to emergency savings relief once a month. So that type of feature can really attract and appeal to a millennial, where somebody that's a little bit older, maybe a boomer or a silent generation, they're a bit more established financially. I think the other connection point is access. And we might get into this, but most employees actually say that they want access to a financial professional. And guess what a great way to get access to a financial professional is? It's through a qualified retirement plan. So there are differences in terms of priorities, but across the board, every generation wants to be able to save and retire.
On that note, one of the things that I have found is that employers give benefits, and depending on what job you came from before, or perhaps where in your career you are, you think of them as table stakes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And you don't realize that this is a benefit that the employer is giving to you at their expense, whether it be money, time, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But as the employee, you very much realize that you are making choices along the way. So as an employer, how do you make it clear that this is something you're doing because you care about your employees?
Well, I think it's great that employers want to make it clear. There is an intrinsic benefit. Our research found that employers that offer a plan tend to have more connectivity to their employees and their well-being than those who don't. But I will say, illustrating the benefit, knowledge is power. So a couple of thoughts around this. Based on our research, knowing that employees experience the economy differently, we also looked at where employees go for information. When they are covered by a plan, 27% of employees actually leverage the educational materials that are provided by the plan provider. So in this case, if somebody had a 401k or a SEP or Simple, that would be American Funds. It could be Fidelity. It could be any of those providers out there. So they're using those materials. Also, having the financial professional on the plan engage with these employees. And it's sort of like, you don't need to toot your own horn. The financial professional can toot it for the employer, right? To really illustrate the generosity. If the employer is perhaps choosing to pay some of the expenses for the plan on their own, have the advisor tell the participants that this is a huge benefit that your employer is providing for you at no additional cost. Number one. I think number two, as well, being able to put together a really specific financial plan and how this retirement plan can help assure a better chance of retirement or open up other conversations for college savings, maybe any sort of financial hardship planning, etc. So illustrating the benefit, there are tons of different ways to do it through record keeper resources, access to a financial professional. And I think also just creating that knowledge base, because we also found that employees go to friends, family, and social media for their financial guidance. I love all my friends and I love my family, but I don't want any of them to tell me how to invest the money. I actually, even being in this business 16 years, I have a financial professional. So I think there's a lot of different ways, JJ, that an employer can help illustrate the advantages of having a retirement plan, as well as their generosity in providing that type of benefit.
Well, it's interesting. You were talking about where employees get their information, but we put out a poll that our audience has answered, which is where do small business owners get their retirement plan information guidance? And what we found, it's the same, right? Friends and family, social media. Now, the most is a financial advisor or planner, but that's still less than 50%.
It is. It is less than 50%, for sure.
So as a small business owner who is hearing about Secure Act 2.0, wants to provide this for their employees, where do they go?
So a financial professional, first and foremost. What's also unique about that poll and in our findings, if papers rustle, I apologize. I want to find the specific stat. I want to say it was 67% of business owners that do not have a retirement plan also do not have a financial professional. So there's a direct correlation there. So I think the first place to go is to talk to a financial professional, one that has retirement plans as a meaningful part of their practice. We've discussed in some previous sessions how complicated they can be. And these financial professionals are there to help make the process easy, simple, and as time flexible, if you will, as possible. I think the other place to go is talk to your accountant. Do you have a certified tax provider who is giving you as a business owner any sort of advice? Maybe have them take a look at where you and your company can benefit, take advantage of some credits, deductions that are available, and decide what type of plan is best for you. The other place, I got to plug, AmericanFunds.com/retire. Come visit us. We can help you understand the different types of plans.
Well, I think that's the thing for small business owners who, again, we talked about this before, but who are so overwhelmed. This is a lot. So even knowing that it's paid for, the fact that so few small businesses offer these plans to their employees really indicates to me that it's more than that cost. There's more than just cost that was the barrier.
Yes. Yes. And we've touched on some of them. You hit on most of them specifically. It's going to be time. There are also some perceptions around the business itself. Our research found that some of these business owners would say, my company isn't big enough. Or they might say, I don't know that my company is stable enough. And not necessarily stable in terms of revenues and cash flows. They're thinking about employee turnover as well as part of their stability. And again, having a retirement plan can aid in keeping talent intact, right? Not having as much turnover or being able to attract more loyal employees to your employee population. So I think there are tons and tons of different reasons. But in terms of what they're facing, it usually is going to be time, administrative cost, and just the perception that they're not big enough or a plan isn't right for them. And we see plans opened up for one employee to tens of thousands of employees. There is a solution for literally every business that's out there.
We're getting a number of questions from the audience, and I'm going to get them in one second, but I have one last question for you, which when I think of providing retirement benefits to my employees, the first thing that comes to my mind is, do I now then need to match it? And if I do, how do I figure out the matching? Because then there's another expense that I might very much want to do, but it's just another thing to have to figure out.
Yes, great question. The match can be a huge incentive for employees. In fact, in our research, we found that 78% of employees would participate in a retirement plan if there was a company match. So one of the first things we talked about were tax credits available to business owners. That's going to fall under that employer contribution or match category. So not all plans require a match. We had talked in previous sessions around a third-party administrator, incredibly valuable resources and partners in this industry. Think of them as an architect to a plan. So to your question, JJ, if an employer isn't sure if they can afford a match or a profit sharing, and they just want to be able to allow employees to contribute, there are plans specifically designed to allow that. There are also more robust plan types like a 401k where a third-party administrator can help you design the plan in such a way where you as an employer may not have to make a contribution if you're not in a place to be able to do that. So really what I'd want them to know is pie in the sky. What can you do? What can you afford? Whatever it is, there's a solution for the employer.
All right. Well, this leads right into one of the questions we've gotten from the audience, which is, how do I choose a financial planner? Many of the times their interest is priority and then ours. How do you get someone who's in sync with you?
Sure. So if you don't have a financial advisor, there's a number of different ways. You can reach out to Capital Group. We can actually help you in locating a financial advisor in your area, one that specifies or specializes rather in qualified retirement plan business. But it's interesting when you talk to a lot of financial professionals, most assume that they only work with individuals. I would always encourage advisors to make sure that their clients know if they also do qualified retirement plans. But any of the large broker dealers that are out there, I almost don't want to mention some for fear I might leave some out, but there are tons of firms with plenty of financial professionals that specialize in the qualified employer-sponsored retirement plan space. That's who you want to work with. Call any of those local offices and say, do you have a retirement plan specialist in your office? And they'll be able to get you through to someone who can help. Call us, we can talk you through it.
Is there a large range of pricing when you talk to different financial planners, or should everyone be kind of within the same range?
They're usually within striking distance. There's been an incredible amount of fee compression in the industry. And so most financial professionals are going to be within striking distance of one another. The other thing that you would want to ask is, what are you delivering to my employees for this fee? So one of the things that you would ask me is, how do you articulate this benefit? If you have a financial professional working with you on your plan, many of them are happy to come to your place of employment and meet with your employees over the lunch hour, maybe before your doors open or at the end of your day, so as not to infringe on any sort of productivity, and really discuss with your employees the unique benefits of the plan that you're offering, but also sitting down with them and helping them decide what deferral amount is right for them, which investments might be right for them. And in thinking about deferral amounts, JJ, another interesting stat in terms of things that employees want, 78% would love a match, but almost 50% of employees wouldn't mind being auto-enrolled into a plan. And guess what? Secure Act 2.0 has some tax incentives for plans that offer auto-enrollment of their employees with an auto-escalation plan. So tons of cool stuff.
That basically means that somebody is enrolled and you have to check the box saying no instead of checking the box saying yes.
Correct. It's a negative consent. The employer can choose where they start that deferral. The government requires it's a minimum of 3%. And what's cool about that is 3% is usually a push for most people. If you're doing a pre-tax salary deferral, you don't even feel the difference in your take-home pay. But now your employees are actually putting some money away and helping to improve their outcomes over time.
Another question from Janice about financial professionals. Should you choose one that lives in your area or your state?
I think you should, Janice. Having a local resource that is there to physically support you and your employees, making sure they can come on site, have some of those engagements, but also importantly, sitting down with you as the business owner, at least on an annual basis, to review the plan, the investments, the participation. Is your plan working? And are you seeing success? So I think having a local resource makes the most sense.
I think so too. All right. And Ashley Summers asked, Kendria from the audience asked, would a cash balance pension plan work for my single member LLC?
It could. So a cash balance plan is a really interesting way to save. Again, talk to a tax advisor first. See if that makes sense for you with the structure. It also, a cash balance plan, this can get a little into the weeds. It's really going to depend on your income, your age and what you reasonably think you might be earning and what your business might be doing over the next 5 years or so. So it's a complicated formula, but for a sole proprietor or for closely held businesses where most of the employees are maybe family, cash balance plans can be very attractive in conjunction with a salary deferral plan.
All right. And I have another rather specific question from Barbara in the audience, but I want to put it out there for you to see what you answer. But she says, I'm retired. What are the benefits of moving my funds in a 401(b) to a Roth? I don't like losing to taxes every time I remove funds from my 403(b) account. Perhaps you need to speak to a financial planner.
I would say definitely talk to a financial professional about that one, because it is an individual situation. There may be some other factors, your own tax rate, et cetera, to determine whether or not doing any sort of conversion or moving out of the plan would be beneficial for you, as well as looking at the costs of the plan versus the costs of an individual account for yourself. So there's a lot to take into account there.
What are the questions that we need to be asking ourselves, small business owners? We don't know what we don't know, right? So you addressed some of the things we need to talk about when we go in to talk to a financial professional. What should we be asking ourselves?
I think, the first thing is simple, right? Do I have a plan? Yes or no? If you don't have a plan, right, I think the next thing is maybe sit down with some of your employees, your tenured employees, the ones you really want to hold on to, maybe some of the newer ones, and just get the temperature gauge. I'm thinking about offering a retirement plan. If I did, would you participate? And then see what they have to say. Get some of that information, some of that data, and then sit down with that financial professional and say, I've got X number of employees. I think 50% of them would be willing to participate. I can afford X amount of dollars, or I'd like to reduce my tax liability as a business and maybe pass on some of the profits to my employees. Once you do that and you get a general sense of what you as a business might want to accomplish, that financial professional can help you find the right fit. But even if you don't want to take those steps, I think sitting down with a financial professional, giving them the high level picture of what your business and your employee population looks like, sometimes, again, knowledge is power, and just being armed with the information for what the cost of that type of plan or type of structure plan would work best for you is a great place to start and can add confidence to the process that this is the right thing for me and right thing for my employees.
How much administration will it take on the part of the small business?
Annually, they do need to send in some census information. Who was hired? When were they hired? How many hours do they work? And most of that can be pulled down from your payroll system. All told, especially for a small business owner, initially getting your plan up and running, I would say carve out 2 to 3 hours over maybe a 30-day period of just back and forth with your financial professional and the plan provider. But over the course of a year, JJ, I'd say you're probably looking at 10 hours or less dedicated to your retirement plan and submitting payroll and so forth. Once it's up and running, they're usually pretty easy.
Yeah, that is not much at all.
No.
10 hours, I think people can dedicate to something like this, as important like this, because as you say, it really pays in spades on the back end. One, because you are, out of the goodness of your heart, providing something for your employees, but also it is for the goodness of your business as it increases loyalty, as you were talking about.
Right.
What do I need to think about down the road, right? So I get these benefits for 5 years from now. Do I need to be worried about what happens in 5 years when I have offered this because it hasn't cost me anything, or it's cost me very little?
Sure. Well, I think it's important to know that plan sponsors have a tremendous amount of flexibility in determining how they're going to pay for the plan. And this could be any combination of employer wants to bear 100% of the plan costs and only pass on investment expenses to their employees. But you could also do the flip of that. And an employer could say, I want to offer this benefit. My employees clearly want it. I'm going to do this, but we're all going to share in the cost of this benefit. So it just depends in terms of how they're going to do it. But if an employer finds that they've fallen on maybe difficult times, or their plan has grown and it's been incredibly successful, you may want to increase or revisit your plan to find something even more robust for you and your employees, higher limits, more Roth features, whatever that might be. But these plans are designed to be in place for a long time and not be cumbersome financially or administratively. And I think those are two salient points I'd want everybody in the audience to hear today.
All right, we have one last minute to wrap this up. So if you had to give somebody one to do when they get off of this, watching this and hearing all of your great advice, what would it be?
Call a tax advisor. Tell them you want to get a retirement plan in place. Run the numbers for me, right? Let me know what this would look like. How can I potentially reduce my tax liability and improve my financial future and the financial futures of my employees? So call that person first. Once you've done that, they usually also have a deep network of financial professionals, and they can potentially make the referral to the right advisor to help you get the right plan in place as well.
Right. And you were able to cover some of the benefits, that there were many more that we weren't able to go over. And you'll be able to get those from your financial planner. All right. Well, that is all the time we have. Thank you so much, Renee, for coming here and giving us all this great advice. Thank you to the Capital Group